Las Vegas, famous, fabulous playground of the West. A wide-open town that never goes to sleep.
I don't care if the sun don't shine. I do my drinking in the evening time when I'm in Las Vegas.
Get ready for 1 full hour of vintage Vegas. This is Vegas Knights Tales, the radio show. These 3 dealers have spent their time in the gaming pits, and now they're talking. Growing up in 1950s Vegas, breaking into the mob-run casinos in the 1970s, they'll tell what it was really like in the golden era. The art of dice and cards, mobsters and muscles, starlets and harlots. The real story from guys who lived it. Now, let's bring on the hosts. Here's Benny Baccarat, Danny Craps, and Jimmy Baggs. Danny Craps and Jimmy Baggs.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. You're listening to the Vegas Knights Tales right here. Benny Baccarat here with Danny Craps and Jimmy Baggs. Wow, he's out on the lamb.
He's out on a lamb. No pun intended, considering what our show is about today. But Jimmy Baggs will be back. He's laying low. He's on ice right now.
He's on the ice, isn't
He's
he?
on the ice. Maybe he's skating on thin ice.
Yeah,
Let me ask the wife.
Hope he's not.
Anyway, Jimmy Baggs, we're not going to tell where you're at, no matter if they put the screws to us.
Yeah, I mean they can, they can wrench it right down on our heads. We're not going to say nothing.
I'll even take the Spilatro head and the vice thing till you pop my eyes out.
Hey, anyhow, our show today is going to be a little bit about Ralph Lamb.
Living legend.
Living legend of Las Vegas, that's
Icon.
for sure. He's definitely an icon of Las Vegas. Yeah, he's it's very funny how his whole family and everything all originated out of Alamo, wasn't it?
Alamo, that's exactly right. And I don't have enough fingers for all the kids they have.
Oh, they had a lot of kids, that's for sure. From the granddad, I guess he was starting out the whole thing with the rodeo and everything. How he ended up dying. They were all rodeo family. The whole family was rodeo.
The whole family. I mean, there was altogether there was 11 children in that family.
11 kids in that family. And like I said, the grandfather, he was rodeoing. He got bucked off the horse, I believe. It killed him.
He did. His grandfather died. The horse threw him, and he apparently had a concussion and never recovered.
Never
went into
recovered
a coma
after that. Wow.
Yeah, the grandpa.
And then even the dad. Something major happened to the dad, wasn't it?
Unbelievable. The dad had an accident, 1938. He had a telegram in his pocket notifying him that he was just a proud father of another child, I believe a son. And he was rodeoing, and he brushed up against a horse that they were going down the chute or whatever.
Well, it was a runaway horse.
A runaway
that had
horse.
A little boy on it.
A little boy, and he was trying to grab the halter, right?
He was trying to grab the halter to stop the horse with the boy on it, and his horse ran into the other horse, and the horse ended up rolled over on him and killed him.
And he died, and
that was Ralph Lamb's father.
And left the mother with 11 kids to raise.
Yeah, and she, to feed all them kids and everything, she, they lived off the land more or less. Whatever they grew, whatever she canned, everything, put it all up in jars. That's
Preserves.
just how they lived. Preserves.
Yes.
And they lived that way out there on them ranches, because they all worked them ranches there in Alamo.
And when the boys started to get a little older, they did whatever they had to do to keep the family going.
Yeah. Well, Alamo's about 120 miles northeast, northwest? I don't know, somewhere.
I haven't been to Alamo in a last time I was there, I was drunk and didn't remember, and I started yelling, "Remember the Alamo!" Well, that was the wrong one.
Yeah.
That's in Texas, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, well, I thought I was in Texas, but I was in northern Nevada.
Yeah, they had Pahranagat Valley out there, Alamo. We used to do a lot of bird hunting out
I remember
there.
someone got mad when I said, is this the town of Roach? It was Pioche. The guy says, Roach? We're not cockroaches here. Where are you from?
Yeah, where are you from? Well, it's time to leave.
Down south?
Yeah, down south.
South of what? The border?
Yeah, gotta go. Anyhow, Ralph and them lived in Alamo. Then he ended up going into service. Well, actually, after his father died, his brother Floyd took
The
him and
oldest.
Wanda in, and
Yes.
they raised all them kids on their ranch.
That's right, the Buckhorn Ranch. if
Buckhorn
I'm not
Ranch,
mistaken.
and I believe they had to do all the chures. They would go out and they would sweep churches, schools, houses, whatever, just to make a living.
just to bring home the bacon and keep those kids fed and clothed.
That was a hard life back then.
It
I mean,
was.
you got kids raising kids. They had to scrap for themselves.
Yes,
so
they
they
did.
become very tough.
Yes, they did.
Very
Yes, they
tough
did.
family
They used to scrap with each other all the time.
all the time. I remember seeing it a few times.
That's right, out at Los Rancheros, without getting too far ahead, but they would scrap with each other. They'd start beating each other up.
That's true. They did. They did a lot of that. They were tough boys. Anyhow, he ended up going into service and getting out of the service and everything, and he was came back out here to Las Vegas and.
Well, Pat,
What
he wanted to go. He wanted to be an FBI agent,
That's what it
but
was.
the immediate needs of the family outweighed his own personal, dreams. So he ended up getting a job as a deputy sheriff at the old Las Vegas police.
Yeah, and he said
department.
that was exciting work for him. He enjoyed that type of work, and being a hands-on type of guy, he could get right in there and mix things up. And there was quite a few thugs back then, so he called them. They just had a lot of that, and he liked to take care of business.
Well, Pat, it wasn't long after he became a deputy that he rose to the rank of chief detective, in charge of the detectives. It was, like you said, he had fists the size of holiday hams.
Yeah, he had fists the size of holiday hams.
And he used to give people a season's greeting that they didn't forget.
Yeah,
He used to rearrange dental work.
he did. He did do a lot of
Oh,
that.
yes, he did. Yes,
he
he did.
rearranged a lot of
Oh,
that.
and then any of those wannabe mobsters, he would monkey them up, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, he had a certain growl about him. He had a voice that he was it was like a low gravelly growl that like he smoked 5 packs of Marlboros a day. So he
Pat, you're absolutely right. That's what he did. He was a chain smoker.
he was a chain smoker, is right. He,
5 packs a day. Well,
5
imagine,
packs a day.
Imagine he was under a lot of pressure from time to time. Back then, prior to Lamb taking over, the old police department, was they were appointed by the commissioners, and if you didn't go their way, you were gone.
Yeah, you were gone. That's the truth. You definitely were gone. He ended up went into the old Las Vegas airport there on Las Vegas Boulevard. He went in there, and there was a guy that was about 12 foot away from him, started shooting at him.
That's right.
Shot about 3 or 4 times. He hit the ground
That's
and
right.
started shooting back. And the guy took off running. Neither one of them hit each other.
Correct.
So it's almost like one of those, you hide behind a barrel, I'll hide behind it, pop up and shoot,
Yes.
miss. But anyhow, the guy took off running. Instead of him shooting the guy in the back, he got up and he run the guy down. He said, "They were just another thug here in town that he, wasn't sure that Ralph walked in. He thought the guy was Ralph was after him to arrest him." So
Yeah. Well, Ralph could have been a field goal kicker because he'd grab him by the neck like holding a football and then kick him square where the sun don't shine with those big 12-size cowboy boots. I'm sure you've been had the boot put to you.
I had the
Benny.
boot. I did. I had the boot put to me.
It hurts.
Yes, it
those
does
boots
hurt.
hurt. They're not just aesthetically pleasing. They hurt.
They do hurt, especially if they use the point. Luckily, he didn't use the point on me.
Well, you
It
could
would have
sure
lifted me up a few feet.
Oh my God! Talk about having hemorrhoid troubles, or even down the road, prostate troubles.
Yeah.
I
Well-
don't want to get into health issues just because of the point of the boot, but let me tell you, you could suffer.
Well, you could suffer. And when you took a look at Ralph, by his stature, he was tall. He was he was a strapping
6'2".
6'2", but when you're looking at him in that uniform and everything, for some reason he looked like he was 6'5". You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that's right.
And
Broad
plus-
shoulders.
And plus the respect, that everybody had for him.
Well, sure, because Ralph, I used to see Ralph. He'd come into the Golden Nugget when I was down there in 73 to 77 because he was friends with Steve Wynn. And of course, we're going to talk about the relationship they had, which was actually, it's going to amaze a lot of people that Steve was involved in these activities.
Oh, absolutely.
Why don't you tell them what activities he was involved in?
Actually, he was a roper. He was what they called a header, which they go out and rope the head of the steer, and then they'll have a heeler, a guy that that ropes the heels of the steer, and that's just what they call him, a header and a heeler. They did that out on the ranch there on Smoke Ranch Road for I think 5 days a week. They were out there. James Kahn was a part of that.
James Kahn.
Willie Nelson.
They
were all big parts of all that out there. They spent all their time like I think Mr. Wynn said at one time they could get on the horses and just ride into the sunset out there because there was nothing out there at the time.
No, it was wide open.
Wide open. So actually, yes, he was a major cowboy himself.
I'm wondering if Willie went behind the barn and lit up one of those funny cigarettes, some of that wacky tobacco.
Well, he might have went behind the bar too and did that.
Yeah, he might have. He might have. But that's right. I mean, Steve Wynn actually had a card. And what did that card say?
He was definitely a roper. I mean, he had the card for being a regular roper, PRC roping card
that allowed you to be a roper and to be a cowboy. Actually, and it was an organization. Mr. Wynn said that himself. We had an organization out there, and he remembers losing some skin and getting banged up. He said it was a lot of fun, but it was also a dangerous thing, a dangerous sport.
Yeah, but they did it on a daily basis out there. Even Benny Binion was out there.
Benny, yeah.
I mean, you take this town back then, having all them bigwigs out there like that.
Oh,
it's amazing. You can imagine the fun that they had, the fun they got to see back then. I mean, you're out there on a ranch just having a great time. Going riding. Roping, whatever. That's just the way this town was back then.
And if you talk to my father was a horseman, and I was briefly until I kept falling off a lot. See that wasn't my forte. I'd rather watch the Long Ranger than to be the Lone Stranger.
Yeah, well, his dad kept trying to get you to saddle it up.
The horse he bought me was named Brownie, and the significant feature of Brownie is when you fell off, the horse stopped and looked at you like you were the dummy. Get back on because you're getting off again.
Yeah, get back on because I'm going to get you off again.
That's right. But, Pat, you think about it. Like, I was around some old-time cowboys just because of my dad, and those guys were a different breed. I remember being around these two guys that were like 80. They'd been on trail rides through Texas, Abilene, and just the way they talked, it was like a lost way of language in the Western. I mean, they were back in the past. The way they talk was like listening to, John Wayne and Rooster Cogburn.
Sure. Well, even Ralph Lamb had a talk about him. Everybody thought he was from Texas.
That's right.
But he was actually from out here.
Well, he would tell them, I'm from right here.
I'm from right here.
I'm from right here.
But he had that accent, more or less, that everybody just would say, wow, this guy's from Texas. What part? No, he's right from here.
Oh, absolutely. And, he's credited with a few things, Pat. Why don't you tell the audience that they might not know these things about Sheriff Ralph Lamb, the last cowboy sheriff of Las Vegas.
He was the last cowboy, that's for sure. He got into a little bit of a deal at the DI with
Johnny Roselli.
Johnny Roselli. It was sitting there. Now, Ralph was one of these that was supposed to have set up. He did set up to where anybody coming into town that they didn't know about or was had been imprisoned or whatever, they had to register here in town, and they had to register. Well, Roselli, he didn't register to come into town. Ralph knew that he was here, so they went out to the DI. And we'll get back to that. We're gonna take a short break in about a minute.
Hold that thought.
Hold that thought.
I'm on the edge of my seat, Pat. I want to know what happened between Roselli and Sheriff Ralph Lamb.
I'll tell you what, you're gonna find out. He found out in a hurry.
It might not be
we'll
good.
talk about that as soon as we come back. listen to the Vegas Knights Tales right here. Benny Baccarat, Danny Craps.
And Jimmy Baggs, you're on ice right now, baby.
Now, let's return to the Vegas Knights.
Hey, welcome back. Listening right here to the Vegas Knights Tales here with Benny Baccarat and Danny Craps. We were right in the middle of talking about Johnny Roselli out there at the Desert Inn. He was supposed to have registered when he come into town. Ralph Lamb found out he didn't register. So he went out there to make sure he did. But he told this rookie policeman, he said, I want you to go into the
coffee shop.
The coffee shop there. And I want you to tell this Mr. Roselli that he has to come downtown and register. So the police officer, he went in there, and Johnny Roselli was sitting there with Mo Dalitz and a guy named Peanuts Dandolio. Yes. I think I said that right.
Yeah, it's a little more Italian than Polish, Pat. I mean, Benny.
And anyhow,
I don't know who. I know some guy.
Keep calling me Pat. Anyhow, he went in there and he told him. He says, Mr. Lamb wants you to come down and register. And he told this cop, he said, get away from me. Just get out of here. You don't know what the hell you're talking about, which Ralph knew he was going to do.
Absolutely.
So he told that rookie cop, he said, now whatever you do, don't push the issue. Don't make a hero out of this. Just leave. And he did. The rookie cop went left, and Ralph told him, says, now go just sit in the car, turn it on. I'll be out there shortly. So Ralph walked up to the table with Mo Dalitz and Johnny Roselli and this Peanuts Dandolio. And he ended up reaching down. He grabbed Johnny Roselli by the tie, brand new tie, yanked him down and yanked him over the table, started slapping him around. And
I believed he slapped the cologne out of him.
He slapped the cologne right off him. What he did, and ended up dragging him out and throwed him in the back of the car and everything. Well, in the meantime, this Peanuts Dandolio was going to stand up and do something, but Mo Dalitz seen that another officer was coming up behind him.
To sucker punch
him. So Mo Dalitz grabbed him by his tie and told him, sit down, you just watch and learn.
Watch and learn, exactly.
Watch and learn. So they Ralph ended up taking him downtown and throwing him in jail. Of course, he posted bond the next day and flew on out of here, which sent a message to all these mob guys that Ralph wasn't somebody to be messing with.
No, and as we all know what happened to Johnny Roselli 10 years later, they found him in a 50-foot drum off the Florida coast.
Yeah, floating in a barrel, sure.
And Johnny Roselli, he was not someone to really mess with the average person. He was the overseer when he was the spokesperson between all the mob's interests in all the early hotels. He was the guy that settled all the disputes. He was well respected. And Ralph let him know that this is my town.
This is my town. And I tell you one thing, he definitely kept a lot of riffraff out of this town. There's plenty of stories going around about how he had a hit squad that worked for him. You don't know. He never said that anybody killed anybody. He said that never did happen, but they asked him, did it help your reputation? He said, absolutely, it helped my reputation.
Well, Pat, maybe there was some missing bikers at one point. Do you want to recall that story about that?
Yeah, there was the Hells Angels were going to come into town. Ralph Lamb, he heard about it. So he went out to State Line. He met them out there, and he told them, he said, if you come into town, I'll kill every one of you. You're going to turn around and leave. Excuse me. So they ended up leaving. But then he told him, he says, now you can come back into town next week, and I'll hold a place up in Mount Charleston for you. So you can have all your big party up there. Well, they all came in. They drove up to Mount Charleston, and he was waiting there with all the police force. And he ended up taking all their jackets, give them haircuts, deloused them,
took their bikes, them.
And he took them all back to State Line, told them, get out of here, don't ever come back.
He dismantled most of the bikes. He took them apart, gave them back the parts. Here, this will give you something to do on your way back to California.
That's it, and that's a true story.
Well, what about that one story about the Gents?
The Gents was another thing. That was out where I lived. out there by Sunrise Mountain. They had about 4 or 5 gents that lived out there in trailer estates. Well, they had a little girl that was raped. I think she was like 14 years old, and supposedly these guys did it. And it took exactly 1 day, and Ralph Lamb was all over it. Those guys were completely moved out of that trailer. Everything was gone, and they never heard from these guys again. So they don't know, nobody really knows what happened to them.
If they're alive or if they're part of the scenery out there in the rocks.
Got no clue.
Red rocks.
Yeah. But that actually happened.
Valley of Fire.
He didn't mess around.
I used to see some holes out there when I was younger, and my older cousin would say, I think they're getting ready to bury somebody.
You never knew. You never do know.
Yeah, I went somewhere else.
You know, if you've seen a real, like, shallow grave, you just turn around and leave. If you've seen a little shallow hole, you just turn around and leave.
I seen a big toe sticking up once. I just kept going. I thought it was a cactus.
Yeah. It had a lot of pricks on it, huh?
Well, more than one, I assume. I was too scared to look.
Yeah, you would back then, that's for sure.
You're not kidding, Benny.
You know, anytime you're out riding them horses out there in the sticks, out by the Gymkhana and all that stuff, you never knew what you were going to run up on.
Well, no, I mean, just what we were talking about with Steve Wynn and Ralph and all them. There was nothing out there. You could ride for days before you ran into anything. And even in the 70s, when I was riding with my dad, we were riding behind Tule Springs, where actually that Mormon Trail is back there. A lot of people don't realize that the Mormon Trail came through Tule Springs. And I'd go back there, and my dad would explain, you know, how many hundreds of whatever years ago the Mormons came through there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, on their way.
They were they were prominent in this town, that's for sure.
Well, listen, it was my cousin that named Las Vegas. You know, Rivera, that was coming in with John C. Fremont. Rivera, he said Las Vegas, which, you know, he couldn't say Viva Las Vegas. That was for Elvis to say, but he said Las Vegas, which means the Springs.
The Springs. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
For all you people that want to be on Jeopardy.
And believe it or not, this town here, they've got water all over underneath this town. People don't realize that, you know, when they built a few hotels out there, you go down 20 feet, you run into water. Now they start pumping cement in there to keep some of these casinos from sinking. You know, the water table is up pretty good.
Well, wasn't it not too long ago that they thought the Luxor or the Mandalay Bay were sinking? They were starting to go, you know, like that.
That's exactly the truth.
Yeah, because
they ended up having to stop it, and like I said, they started pumping days of cement down in there, trying to, and they ended up stopping.
There's supposed to be an underground lake under Las Vegas. I mean, there's supposed to be decameters of water down there.
In fact, across from the Sahara, if I'm not mistaken, I was told once they couldn't build anything over 3 or 4 stories there because the weight wouldn't hold it. The water table's right there.
That's amazing.
That is amazing.
That's amazing, considering the droughts that they're having in California. And I mean, Lake Mead's getting so low. You're going to see all of the people that are in cement shoes and in chains, and I don't mean gold chains either.
Yeah, they wouldn't be long. They'll be popping up.
Oh, they'll be popping up.
Down.
They'll look like those old wooden Indian statues.
Yeah.
All petrified.
Yeah, it's a scary thought. Yeah, you go out there now. I just had a friend of mine went out there a few weeks ago, and he went out there and went swimming and skiing. And he ended up getting an infection. He had a cut on his hand, and got infected, and they said it was E. coli. And he said, the only place I could have got is from Lake Mead. Now, I don't know if that has any bearing to it, but they told him, don't go swimming out Lake Mead anymore for now. That heals up.
I haven't been out there in a long time, Pat, not since I was younger, when the lake was full, and, you know, and it just did. I mean, I'm sure it's a natural wonder and people still like to go there, but I just can't it's just so low.
Well, you know, it was low back then. I grew up out there pretty much.
That's right.
I spent a lot of time out there, Lake Mead, and actually it was low then. When I was young, it was low. And they started filling it back up. And it really got full here, I think, in the early 80s, you know, where it went over the spillway and all that. But now it's, you know, it's coming back down. It's a little bit lower because, you know, I mean, look at all the people in this town. They all live off that water.
There's about 2 million, right?
Yeah, a little over 2 million now.
And I don't know any of them.
Yeah, I know a few.
I don't know. You know more than me, because back in the day of Ralph's day and those days, you knew one out of every second person in Las Vegas. It was a small town. I mean, you know, you'd see. I was dealing down at the Nugget, and you'd see Ralph coming in, and Steve and Teddy Binion would come in, and you know, and the old man would come in. Benny would come across. Hotel owners from the Dunes, Sid Wyman, Goldstein. Everyone was all over the place. I mean, everyone felt comfortable. And you had cowboys mixing with wise guys. And as a matter of fact, there's a terminology. There's a term there when Sheriff Lamb was taking care of the mob guys. What was it, Zan?
They said the gangsters substituting for gun-slinging cowboys. Now
That's right.
This is believe it or not, where the mob wanted to be like cowboys.
That's you darn tootin'.
You know, they wanted to be like a cowboy, but they couldn't because they didn't have the hands that went around with it. You know what I mean? They always wanted to shoot or something like that. These guys used their hands. They didn't use guns. They used fisticuffs.
Oh, that's right.
And they fought. They were used to fighting.
Oh, yeah.
Get it on.
I mean, how many times when the rodeo came to town, Sheriff Lamb had policemen driving 2 and 3 in a car because he knew what was coming.
He knew it was coming.
And them cowboys would be fighting all over the place, on the street, in the back alley. I mean, I remember going on a break. It was rodeo time. There's 4 or 5 cowboys mixing it up.
Sure.
And I was going, woohoo, yeah. And they looked at me like, you want some of this? Nah, I went back in.
Yeah. No.
I'm a lover, not a fighter.
Yeah, they did a lot of fighting back then. That's just, well, you know, you get your aggression out and then you're done.
Yeah, then they'd go and have another beer, and the other guy say, yeah, my tooth is kind of loose. Well, let me knock it out for you. That way you won't worry about it.
You don't have to worry about it no more.
How about this? The Cowboys were so tough that one guy was getting shit kicked out of him, and the other guy says, hey, you want some help? He goes, no. Eventually he's going to get tired, and then I'll get him.
And then I'll get him.
And sure enough, the guy got tired, and the other guy started whomping on him.
Yeah.
I guess it was fun.
Yeah, I guess. That's just the way this town was, though.
It was, though, Pat, wasn't it?
It was.
I mean, Benny! I'm sorry. I've been dealing with someone. I don't know who he is.
I don't know who he is. But then they had Los Rancheros out there.
That's
off
right.
Ann Road there.
We used to go.
We used to go all the time. They had steak and beans. That's all they served, steak and beans. But you'd see all the boys there at the bar fighting.
That's right.
They had nobody to fight. They'd fight with each other.
And, of course, nobody called the police.
No, nobody called the police.
The police were never around Los Rancheros on a weekend.
No, that was all cowboys out
all
there.
Cowboys.
You know, they're in Bob Taylor's ranch house between those two.
Oh, my goodness. The stories. I mean, and later on in years, when Ralph was retired, he used to get his hair cut from Tony up at Caesar's Palace. Tony was like the go-to barber for everybody. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there was a lot of people to go see Tony. And you'd see Ralph come in. He'd be wearing his Western suits, nice dressed, clean. You know, and, of course, everybody, hey, Mr. Lamb, Ralph. Hey, always had a minute for everybody.
He did. He always stopped. Anyhow, we're going to take a quick break right now, and we'll be back. You're listening to the Vegas Nights Tells right here. Call in, 483-4444.
I'm a low-cow hand.
Now let's return to the Vegas Nights.
Hey, welcome back. Listen to the Vegas Nights Tells right here. Benny Baccarat, Danny Kraft. We're talking a little bit about Ralph Lamb. You know, it's funny, when I was working at the Aladdin, he used to come through. And he had such a presence about him, just walking through. You could actually say, "Hey, Ralph, how you doing?" He would make a point to come over and stop and say hi, shake your hand. He did that to everybody. He was really a gentleman. I was proud to be around. You know, and if you had any problems, you could go to him and he would straighten them out, or he would tell you how to straighten them out.
That's right, or he would straighten you out.
Yeah, I remember I heard one story about him, about this one bartender that was having a tough time with these pimps coming in there, giving him a hard time. And I guess he went to Ralph. Ralph told him, says, take a baseball bat and break their arms. He says, come out and break their arms. He said, they won't be back. And I don't think the guy ever did it, but he ended up folding. He ended up having to close his shop. Yeah, he just wouldn't do nothing about it. But that's how Ralph was. Just take care of it. You know, I'll back you up if you need backup, if he liked you. You know, it's crazy. And he's one of the guys that took the sheriff department and the police department and combined them to become Metro here in town. Because, you know, his brother Floyd was a state senator, and his other brother Darwin was the county commissioner. So they ended up getting that passed pretty easily.
Yes.
And he's also the guy that started the SWAT team.
That's right.
And the SWAT team, you know, they didn't care for too much of the SWAT team because he gave them a lot of power to take care of a lot of the thugs that were going on.
They were called the Task Force 86.
Task Force, yeah, 86. And there's a term that you hear out here all the time. Everybody keeps thinking it's eight miles out, 6 foot down. But that's not the case. 86 means that there was a file that everybody that was coming into town, Ralph's secretary and everything kept a file on them, an 86 file. So they knew exactly what the guy was about, where he got arrested, the whole 9 yards. So they could, you know,
keep an eye on him.
That was pretty interesting, too.
Well, it was an interesting thing because we all knew that the mob was very much connected in the 70s, but there was also an accord. They had to follow the rules as far as, look, you make your money, but don't make waves, and when I ask you to do something, you better do it.
Better do it. Yeah, he hired a lot of people in this town to put to work and everything.
Oh, hundreds.
And if they was not put to work, he went out and had words with the owner himself.
That's right.
You know, when I tell you to do something, do it.
Well, yeah, when he told you with that gravelly voice and that glare and that 6'2" with the broad shoulders, you did it. He was kind of John Wayne-esque.
Yes. Well, I remember he was. I don't remember. I heard the story where he was sitting at a light, and I guess they had like a trigger man come up to him, and he had 2 little boys in the back seat. Ralph Lamb did. And the guy told him, says, well, you don't have to worry about your family or these 2 kids, but I hear you've been putting a muscle on a lot of people here in town. And he says, you're going to be backing off. And Ralph looked at him. He said, well, I'm not worried about the family or the kids, because if you lay one finger on any of them, I'll kill 10 of you on a daily basis.
That's right.
And that's the way he was. He met a few people at the airport he knew was coming in. They didn't even get off the airplane. He just told them, get back on, leave.
That's right.
You're not coming to my town. That's how he was. That was a pretty tough guy.
He was. Well, I remember in '71 I got in a little bit of trouble. Nothing that any juvenile delinquent wouldn't do, but I remember getting thrown in the clink, and I called my father, and he made an appointment with Ralph, and I'm sitting in Ralph Lamb. I'm shaking. I mean, I'm right there from Ralph Lamb, and he's looking at me stern, like, you know, it wasn't a you know, like a meet and greet. It was. He goes, look, you know, your dad's a nice guy, you know, because my dad's cousin was at that time was Judge John Mendoza, as we all know. Sure. And my dad had used that name to talk to Ralph. He said, my cousin, and so forth. So, you know, there he is. He goes, Ralph says, look, you come from a good home. I don't want to see you back in here. He says, or else I'm taking this boot to you. You see this boot? I go, yes, sir. He goes, well, don't come back. And I got out of that mess because my dad went to Ralph. And Ralph was very, I mean, he only had to say it once, yes, sir.
Yeah, well, he had a look about him that he'd sit there and stare you down. I mean, you know, he might be looking at you and thinking of something else, but that look would be enough to scare you, you know, because if he did get stern and start talking to you, you were going to listen. He had no problem coming over and, you know, shaking the stuffing out of you. That's
right. And he also had one of his, he didn't become undersheriff, but he was close, was Gene Clark, who was another tough. He used to knock out his own officers.
Oh, yeah.
And Ralph would say, Ralph would tell him, he goes, you know, I can't promote you an undersheriff if you keep knocking out the deputy sheriff and all these other guys.
Well, they get out of line. They're going to get it. Well, he had that one policeman that worked for him that was real tough. He used to beat all kinds of people up, and Ralph had to end up firing him. What was his name? Can't think of his name.
Was that
right
Joe
now.
Blasco?
Yeah, Joe Blasco.
Joe
That's it.
Blasco.
Joe Blasco. Yeah, he was. He used to like to beat people up. You know, he'd stop and give you a ticket. He used to yank guys out of their car and beat them up.
Well, he was a tough boy. I used to see him. You know, he had to go to prison for a short time, and he used to go to the Camelot Health Spa there. It was off Sahara, if you recall. And I would see him work out, and he was real quiet. I mean, no one said much to him. And for an older guy, I think he was already then in his early 60s. He was in great shape. He was built like a bull. I mean, I wouldn't have want to tussled with him because he looked like he could give it as well as take it.
Oh, there's no doubt about it.
He was tough.
Well, you know, there was quite a few people that tried to take him on. They couldn't do it. He was just
No.
too tough.
And did you know both of his sons became police officers?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they had a great career, both of them.
Yeah, but he got fired because I think he was leaking information to Tony Spilotro.
Well, Joe Blasco was on the intelligence squad, and it appeared that he was giving information to the Hole in the Wall gang led by Anthony Ant Spilotro.
Yeah.
That's what they called his crew, the Hole in the Wall, because they would make holes in walls and go in there and take whatever they wanted.
Yeah. Rape and pillage anything in there. I mean, they used to steal all kinds of stuff. Businesses, didn't matter, houses. They had a way of doing it.
Well, their last job, you know, ended up at Bertha's Specialties on Charleston, and they had that covered.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh yes.
But that, you know, that's just that's a little bit of part of this town, how it was, and we just wanted to pay a little bit of respect to Ralph. That's for sure.
Well, how about this, Pat? And when the Beatles came to town
There's
in
another one.
1964, the first thing they had to do when they got off the plane was go see Ralph Lamb and register for an entertainment license. And you know what? The boys must have heard about Ralph because they complied.
They complied. They fingerprinted them, everything.
they did.
Anybody coming in this town that was working in this town had to go through that process. That was just something that he demanded to have done. It's almost like check your gun in with me.
Well, they kind of
Bill
sang a few
West.
bars of their hit song, I Want to See Your Hand.
They did. They
For
they
fingerprinting
fingerprinted.
purposes, yes.
They did. Yeah, and even all them people downtown at the Golden Nugget. Look at all that starred down there. Barbara Mandrell and all them. They were all a big part of all that.
Oh, yeah, Willie Nelson,
Yeah.
Johnny Paycheck. Wasn't he one that did Take This Job and Shove It?
Shove It. Yeah, he did that. All of them starred down there. I mean, there's a lot
Kenny
of them.
Rogers.
Kenny Rogers, Buck Owens. You go on and on and on.
Listen, Kenny Rogers, he had made that transition. He was in a group, I think he was in the first edition, and he had that one song, I Blew My Mind Out in a Brown Paper Bag. Well, if you played it today, probably wouldn't be a hit, but back then everybody was stoned, so it was a big hit.
Great big hit.
And then he saw that because I seen him at the Flamingo in the lounge with the first edition and Chaka Khan, because you could these were lounge shows, folks. These were some of the entertainment. I mean, Chaka Khan, she used to appear at the Flamingo and other entertainers and stuff, and you could see all of this for the price of a
two
movie
drinks.
ticket, 2 drinks, and you could
drink
see-
minimum.
I remember sneaking into all these shows, but Kenny Rogers, he made the transition to country western. He was in the beginning. Steve nailed him right away, and he used to park his little Mercedes on the front in Fremont Street, come in. And just to show you that he was concerned about money back then, he came up to me one day and he said, I'd like to learn to play this game. I said, well, Kenny, pull out some of that money. And he pulled out $200, and he kind of thought that was all the money he had in his world, you know. He was like, well, I don't want to lose too much. I go, don't worry, Kenny. You're going to have a long-term contract here.
Long-term contract.
And the rest is, but people like that. And Willie Nelson, after his concert, he went across to the bar where everybody was, and everyone started lighting up joints, and he's, singing all the whatever songs he had, the hits back then, and everyone's smoking weed at this bar with Willie Nelson.
Yeah, they Buck Owens, all of them. They all.
Buck Owens and his Buckaroos from Bakersfield, California.
That's true. That's true.
I always found the early country western songs, the real sad ones, She took the Mercedes, but she left me the dog. I mean, I just love that analogy. I just, it's great stuff.
You sing good. Sing some more.
Well, I could do the Hee Haw song. I'll search the world over.
Was that Benny Hill?
With the Yakety sax in the background?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, don't talk back.
Don't talk back.
Yeah, Ralph, he was big part of this town. It's amazing how time has went by. It just seems like yesterday. You sit there and just you can see him walking in the hotels, walking down the street, whatever. Always in that pressed uniform.
How about this one? I was, I worked day shift when I was at the Nugget for 4 years, and I remember going. We could eat in the coffee shop. I remember sitting there. I was having something to eat, and here comes Steve Wynn, Ralph Lamb, and former Governor Grant Sawyer.
Oh, Grant Sawyer.
I go, "Hey, Mr. S, how are you?" And he'd come over. He actually came over and said, "Hi, how you doing?" I go, "I voted for you."
Wow. Yeah,
right around. I mean, all these guys, they all hung out. I mean, Rex Bell Jr. and Sr. I mean, everybody. The town was small, and everybody was hanging out with everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, how about Harry Claiborne?
Yeah, Harry Claiborne.
Oscar Goodman will tell you he learned a lot from Harry. Harry Claiborne was one of the top defensive attorneys in the country before he became a federal judge.
That's right.
And the only federal judge to ever be impeached.
Paul Laxalt. They had all
Paul
these,
Laxalt. Oh yeah, he was Basque, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Right, like from Spain, the Basque.
Yeah.
He was from Northern Nevada.
Northern Nevada.
His son's now Attorney General.
Wow.
Adam Laxalt.
Adam.
Yeah. Isn't that something?
It's crazy. You sit there and you think about time, how fast it goes.
How about this one? When M.J. Christensen used to be on the corner, I'd see these guys. I'd go in there and think, well, I'd sure like to get me one of these rings or something. And here'd come one of those guys. Might be Ralph. It might be Grant. It also Judge Seymour Brown. What a colorful character he was, right?
He was real.
He would come in with Ralph, right, and then Ralph would leave and whenever I'd get a ticket, I would introduce Judge Seymour to one of the ladies that might be having some difficulty, newly arrived in Las Vegas, and all my troubles disappeared. All the tickets went away, and the Judge Seymour would said, "You got an eye for talent, kid. Keep bringing me these ladies that are in distress." I go, "Judge, you're the only one that can help them out."
Listen, we're gonna take a quick break right now for our sponsors, and we'll be back talking about Ralph Lamb and some greats here in this town.
Never a hung jury with Judge Seymour Brown.
That's true.
Now let's return to the Vegas Knights.
Hi, welcome back. Right here with the Vegas Knights Tells, Benny Baccarat, Danny Craps, missing Jimmy Baggs. Like I said, he's still on ice. But one thing, he's not
on
there.
The floor.
One thing about Ralph, he was pretty strong with Howard Hughes.
That's right. That's a lot of people don't know that association. They were actually good friends.
They were real good friends. It's funny because Ralph Lamb was hired by Howard Hughes to sort of watch after him and stuff. So he would go down and get on the phone, and he would call Howard Hughes, and Howard say, "Is there a guy in the phone booth next to you?" And Ralph say, "Yeah, there is a guy." So what it was, he had somebody watching Ralph Lamb while Ralph Lamb was watching these guys. So there's always somebody watching, just like these casinos. There's somebody always watching somebody watching somebody.
That's right. Exactly. Just like in the opening of Casino, the movie with De Niro and Joe Pesci, where they said the boxman's watching the dealers. The floorman's watching the boxman watch the dealers. The pit manager's watching the floorman watch the boxman watch the dealers. And the casino manager is watching everybody, and the owner's watching all of them.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the pecking order.
That's the pecking order. That's pretty strange that they did that even back then. with Howard Hughes.
Oh, absolutely.
Having somebody watch somebody.
Well, I think he was already getting paranoid. Actually, Ralph said that people wouldn't leave him alone, and he thinks that was part of the reason he became a recluse as well.
Yeah. They just kept hammering him, and he finally just sort of faded away. Didn't want nobody around him. Then he got a little bit strange from there.
Well, he quit getting a mani-pedi, and you know what happened after that.
Yeah. Yeah, so they were very good friends. Well, of course, Ralph was friends with everybody in this town back then.
Everybody. I mean, even if he was your adversary, you had respect for Ralph. He was a straight shooter from the hip, he ramrod straight and a man of his word. Yeah. And if you said something to him, you better stick to it.
And they started making that movie, or they did make that movie, about Ralph Lamb. It's too bad it didn't really take off. Dennis Quaid, he played Ralph
played
Lamb.
A great part.
He played a great part, but it just didn't take off. I think it wouldn't.
A little hokey. With the way they portrayed Ralph. I mean, he didn't ride his horse up to Fremont Street.
No, he never did. He never tied his horse up in front of the courthouse. They didn't allow that. And I think a lot of people knew that. They portrayed him running up on his horse down Fremont Street, knocking that guy off the motorcycle.
Or jumping off the horse and tackling somebody.
Yeah. No, one thing he did do, though, they had one guy walk out of the casino, and he took a broomstick, and he ended up throwing it and tripping the guy. I think he went over and just beat the tar out of the guy.
Oh, yeah.
He had ways of doing stuff.
I worked with Dominic Matino, who happened to be Ralph Lamb's brother-in-law. And Dominic would tell us some stories. Dominic sat box at Caesars where I was, and in between dead times there was no game. He'd tell us stories about Ralph. And he said he was over, he took some food over to Ralph, and he's in the house, and all of a sudden the doorbell rings, and Dominic gets up, and Ralph comes over, and the next thing you know, Ralph hits the guy square in the jaw, and the guy goes tumbling, and he goes back to eating his dinner. And Dominic says, "Well, what's going on, Ralph?" He goes, "I told him not to come and bother me. I told him that I'd see him later, and when you do that, interrupt me while I'm eating, that's what's going to happen." Boom! He knocked the guy went tumbling down, and Ralph shut the door. And that's just how he was.
Well, that's how he was, because they had two guys come up to his house that was not invited, and knocked on the door. And Ralph opened the door, and the guy wanted to come in. Ralph just went ahead and just knocked him out. The other guy took off running. He said, I didn't invite these guys, so why are you coming to my house? That's just the way it was,
They said Floyd was one of the toughest brothers out of all the brothers. They said Floyd was, but there was also another brother who was pretty tough, right?
There was quite a few. You had Floyd, you had Slick. They had a guy named Slick. I think he was one of the toughest. He lived in, I believe, in California, but they were all tough. Every one of them were tough. Of course, Darwin. He was the good-looking one. I mean, he was a movie star. This guy. I mean, he could have if you ever watch him ride a horse, he knew how to ride a horse. I mean, this guy was tall and good-looking, and he had everything. He fought. He did it all, but Darwin was the best-looking one. Lamb kept the peace, and Floyd, of course, he was powerful. The whole family was.
It was a dynasty for many years. Yeah. I mean, they used to own Lamb One, which had to do with
Coca-Cola and stuff.
Coca-Cola and the bartending supplies and things like that. I mean, they had their fingers in a lot of things.
Yeah, everybody had it that wanted anything had to go through Lamb and One.
Oh, absolutely.
That's for sure.
I remember going to Ralph's his office up there with my friend Jeff Greco, who he was going with a girl named what was her name? I can't. Anyway, her father was Blackie Dardine.
Oh,
you remember Blackie
Dardine?
Sure. One of the original hosts, and also an excellent golfer. And I mean, he was pretty well known.
Yes, he was.
And he made a phone call to Ralph on behalf of Jeff, and I went up there, and Ralph talked to him, and said, "Hey, look, I'll help you out, and keep your nose clean, and don't steal from the." I mean, Ralph spoke like a casino guy. Don't steal from anybody, because my name's out there.
My name's backing you up. If I catch you doing that, I'm going to come after you.
And what's funny is years later, when we went there, Ralph remembered. He said, You staying out of trouble, kid? He remembered when I was in his office, when I was 18 years old.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
He remembered. He had a good memory.
remembered.
No doubt about it.
He said, "You staying out of trouble?" I go, "Yes, Mr. Lamb. Yes, I
sir.
am." I said, when you gave me that look, I got scared straight. Little did I know it would become a pilot program for people that cross the line.
That's true.
Unlike me.
That is exactly the truth. Yeah. But anyhow, it was...
But you know what, Ralph, rest in peace. You were one of a kind. You were iconic. And you were good for Las Vegas. Ralph Lamb was great for Las Vegas.
And thanks for listening to us right here.
But he left a legacy. He left a legacy.
That he did. That he did.
Benny Baccarat. Enjoy
Danny
yourself
Krebs,
this weekend. Are you going to go ride a horse?
Thinking about it.
I got me a little wooden one that I found from my early days.
Yeah. Well, don't get on it.
I hate to get some splinters in certain areas.
Thank you for listening.
Thank
Vegas
you.
Nights Tales right
Thank
here.
you out there, the world over. Remember, Vegas Nights Tales on AllNet Radio. One of the top...
and YouTube, Vegas Nights Tales.
YouTube, that's right. One of the top stations in Las Vegas and beyond.
That's true. Thank you for listening.